Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm gonna call the meeting to order. It's 6:33. Nice to see everyone. I hope the summer's been awesome all around. So let's get started. We've got our consent agenda, which includes prior minutes and a few policy readings. Any discussion or questions about the consent agenda? So I just need a motion to accept.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Pat. By roll,
We
Emma?
have Lisa on Zoom now. She's
Oh,
not on
she's
camera,
here?
but she is on.
Okay. By roll, Lisa,
Aye.
Emily,
Aye.
Pat,
Aye.
Arlene,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Aaron,
Aye.
and Mary is an aye. Then any need to reprioritize the flow of the meeting?
Don't need to reprioritize, I just need to correct the last item on mine, the school-wide plans from action to information.
Okay, perfect. Great. Okay, so that brings us to our public comment window, recognizing our visitors. Looks like we have a couple folks. Are you interested in talking tonight?
They're actually under my agenda under C.
Oh, okay, so not right now then. Okay, perfect. So that brings us to the financial update. Morgan, you're up.
Those runs quickly sometimes.
Yes.
So I sent an email out late today with your July financial report in terms of where we are at this point in the year. There's nothing really to look at. So I just want to tip you to a few changes on that report in terms of formatting. If you look at page 2, you'll see under Bakersfield Elementary, the code 1201 for special education. You'll see that we're now anticipating a bunch of expenses there and we didn't budget for anything. And that was because when we were going through the budget process last year, the special ed laws were changing and we didn't think we were going to be able to claim anything as special ed at the district level. That seems to have changed back. And so we're reclassifying some of those paraeducators as special ed rather than regular ed. And I can't say with any confidence that that's not going to change again. At the bottom of that page, you'll see a code that says 2620, maintenance of buildings. In the past, we have included all things planned under that 2610 code. Now that we have a facilities manager who's very good at finding things to do that cost money, we're going to pull that out in a separate section of the budget. And so 2610 will really be for the regular operation. You're buying your floor wax, your toilet paper, things like that. And the 2620 will be for some of these projects that we're doing to keep the buildings going. As we get further on in the year, I will play around with the budget numbers. I'll either pull some out of the operations budget, or if we are in a good place after the tuition bills come in, that's a place where I might take some money if we're not going to spend it and put it towards some of the projects that he's going to talk to you about. And then if you look at the last page, page 6, you will see that it shows in that first column, it's a net position of basically $605,000 in the hole. That is equivalent to your carry forward money that we brought forward from FY21 into FY23. You don't really show that as revenue because it's money that we already have in the bank. But as long as we're within that 605 difference, then you're staying within budget. And that's, I know that's kind of a bizarre concept, so I'll keep reminding you of that. But if you look at that tonight, that is what's going on. Unless you have any questions, I'll chime in when Vern is talking a bit, but that's really all I have.
Well, then I guess I just like one quick question about, I'm going back up, what's up, page 2. So the operation and then the maintenance and kind of separating them out, moving forward when we start looking at the budget process that we're going to start later in the fall. are we going to, kind of based on the planning and visioning that Vern's been doing with the building, start to kind of create that and build it in as in a separate line item for like for the upcoming year's predictions of costs around
Exactly.
building repairs
Exactly.
and
So
such?
as we kind of get towards a real 5-year plan,
Yeah,
we'll be able to sit down and say, okay, the 4 schools here each have these big projects coming up. Let's put money in there for those. And then we're not necessarily rating a capital fund for those things that we really know are coming down the line.
okay,
And, we've talked a lot about the funding formula changes both in special ed and regular ed. And the hope is that the timing of that is really going to give you some room to start budgeting for that increase in your tax rate.
okay. Super. Thanks. Morgan, anything else financially?
That's all I've got
You're
for
good?
this meeting.
All right, super. All right, so Lynn, that brings us to you.
So Morgan has had a fair bit in this first board meeting of the school year. So Morgan is going to present my slideshow. I'm going to start us off with personnel. And remember, we write these board notes more than a week before we have these meetings because of the warnings. So don't pay attention to what you've got in your packet previously because it's already not correct anymore. So we have under hiring, I put them in as action, even though you gave the authority to do the hiring over the summer. I think it's wise for us to just do a motion to get it recorded. So there, everyone who is in bold on the next slide, Morgan. Bakersfield, that'll be Nathan Bates, teaching grade 3, Elijah DeLong, is it DeLong? Lelong
Douglas.
Okay, Lelong Douglas. I don't know why I was thinking I had a typo. PE and health, and Kendra Pillsbury is coming back to us as a school counselor in Bakersfield. Previously, she was a middle school teacher. Nicole Vance for library and art. Those are your licensed positions. Those are all in bold. Mary Westcomb has joined Bakersfield Food Service, and Haley Paquette will be the new Leaps site coordinator director. In Berkshire, Michaela Hull will be teaching grade 1. Sarah Fortin will be an SEL interventionist, and Hannah Tiffany has been hired as a paraeducator. In Montgomery, Melissa Capizzuto will be filling in the library position. Ellen Libby will be taking on grade 2. I think that there's some configuration changes in that grade 2 that maybe Sandy can talk about under hers. In Sheldon, Robert Hickey has come back to us for technology integration. Sharon Kelly Larson for grade 5, Brian Rainville for grade 5, Ethan Desatel for grade 3, Bhavana Singh, grade 3, Courtney Norris, grade 1, Michelle Bolio for library, and Kirsten Alexander as assistant principal. And you can see that we have some paraeducators that we've also hired: Isabel Paquette, Jasmine Noel, McKenna Connolly, Colleen Ferris has also been hired as an SU special educator for Sheldon, and Samantha Bushy for an SLP paraeducator for Sheldon. And before I move on, I just want to say the hiring this year has been different than in any other year. I've been in administration at this point for 16 years and I've never seen a year like this. So we've seen, I'm going to talk a little bit more later on in my board agenda about the current reality about the teacher workforce and retention and recruitment plan for the future. We've seen larger than normal turnover and fewer than what we're used to in terms of applications. In some of our positions, we've had 0 applications. So we've had to get very creative in terms of looking in-house and looking within our communities to try to find people who have an interest in going into education. So we have several people who are actively in educator training programs, and they're seeking licensure while they're working on the job for some of these positions. So we knew going into this year that we were going to have challenges with hiring, and made a shift at the SU level so that you're all aware. We have a model shift. So we had one person who was working part-time for us who was doing all of our mentoring for our new teachers. She retired, and that really wasn't a sustainable model with the number of new teachers that we have. So we actually have 3 full-time instructional coaches whose focus will be on really helping those brand new teachers new to the profession and new to us teachers, and trying to shore up their instructional practices and supporting them when they face the challenges and celebrating them when they're doing great things. So we're hoping that this new model will help them in the moment, but it'll also build a system that maybe builds the confidence and capacity of these teachers so that they will want to stay in the profession. That's part of the rationale behind shifting to that model. So
Next question. When you're looking at your mentors, are you looking like, I'll speak from the essentialist point of view,
Yeah.
that they deal with people who are in a field that they're used to, like we have a new PE teacher who will be in that mentoring group. Will he be matched up with Julie or someone that?
So there's 2 parts to the mentoring, that not for what we're talking about with coaching. I'll
Right.
actually get instructional coaching
Yep.
from our people, but we'll also be having building-based mentors. And in some cases, there is no like person in the
Yeah.
building. So that's something that, you know, our nurses are matched up with other nurses, and our librarian will be matched up with another librarian. I haven't gone all the way through with the principals yet to identify who is going to be who's go-to person, but there are things that are important with someone who's in a like position, but there are also things that are important for someone who's just down the hall. So
Yeah, I agree. I just know that we've got people who aren't licensed in their area, that mentor who's in the same curriculum area really is important.
yes.
Yeah.
Good point. So in terms of resignations, we have Melanie Bentley, a grade 2 teacher from Montgomery, wrote contract right at the end of the year. In Sheldon, Chelsea Men's Cole was a paraeducator, and she is now a classroom teacher in the SU. Ethan Desitel was a paraeducator who's now a grade 3 teacher in Sheldon. Courtney Norris is going to be a grade 1 teacher in Sheldon, and Hannah Godin has resigned from her paraeducator position. So, oh, yeah, thank you. So before we switch slides, if the board wants to make a motion for hiring the licensed staff in that report, that would be great.
I'll make that motion on qualifiers. By roll, Lisa,
Aye.
Emily,
Aye.
Pat,
Aye.
Erin, Arlene,
Aye.
John.
Aye.
And Mary is an aye. Thank you.
We still are in a position where we have several open positions. The principals are working hard, I can attest, trying to be as creative as they can to try to figure out ways to solve the dilemma, the problem that we're in. Some principals have found solutions in looking at class sizes, looking at multi-age configurations, looking at co-teaching models, splitting positions with in-house staff. So we have openings. I don't want you to panic. We're still working through some of those creative solutions. In Bakersfield, we have grade 6 and grade 2, and the math and literacy interventionist positions, a paraeducator position, and a behavior technician position. In Berkshire, we have a paraeducator and a behavior technician position. The planning room para I just signed today, so I think that we're good there. Montgomery, I believe, is fully staffed with the exception of a long-term sub for an interventionist. And Sheldon is still looking for a paraeducator and math interventionist. We have one leave request, and that is an action item. Kelly Hyde is a math interventionist at Berkshire. So she's requested a year's leave of absence from her role as an interventionist in Berkshire. This was not typical, and I explained that to Kelly, that we would get a leave of absence request at this point in the year. Typically they come around contract time, but she's had something personally unexpected that's come up in her life, and does not feel that she can return for this school year. So asking the board to consider whether or not you're willing to grant her that 1 year leave of absence from that role.
This doesn't warrant needing an executive session to have this discussion.
You could, if you have specific questions, I've given you what I can and open, but if you have specific questions, you can move to executive.
Given the kind of it's a big ask
Right.
this late in the year, I feel like it warrants an executive session discussion. We could punt that
Sure.
to the end, and I can circle back to it under board business. Great.
We have, under student tonight, we have parents who are here they're wishing to appeal the elementary school choice deadline to the board, so going to turn over to Sergio and Dan Marcotte, and when you say the ask.
I'm sorry to interrupt. It does say executive session on the,
They're gonna say the ask first.
okay,
And then.
perfect. Okay, thanks.
We requested a waiver from the elementary school choice application deadline to the superintendent in early June, and that request was denied, and so we're here to appeal that decision to the board.
So the nature of this request has person identifiable information that's sensitive. So it is a necessary conversation to have an executive session. I would request that you move into executive session and keep the Marcottes and Rhoda and the board only.
I'll make that motion to enter executive session at 6:50 by roll. Lisa,
Aye.
Emily,
Aye.
Pat,
Aye.
Erin,
Aye.
Arlene,
Aye.
John, and Mary is an aye. So welcome back. All right, so we're exiting this executive session, and I'm going to make a motion that we agree to waive the deadline for elementary school choice for the Marquette family. I'll do that by roll. Lisa,
Aye.
Emily,
Aye.
aye. Erin,
Aye.
Arlene,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
and Mary is an aye.
Fill out the application of this piece. Thank you so much.
Very welcome. Oh, it's a good year.
Say hi to Will for me.
Oh, we will. See ya.
So I have a few other things. I'm going to try to go pretty fast. There's some data that I'm not going to read all of the data to you, but I'm going to just talk quickly about some things that happened at the NESU over the summer to keep you connected to some of the work. So for summer learning, we had 4 pretty awesome opportunities for our teachers to participate in some summer learning. The first was with Up for Learning, and it was really focused on building the youth-adult partnerships and elevating student voice and agency in the work we're doing across our system. So that was a kickoff. This was kind of a planning committee, and the intention is that these kids will bring this back to more kids and build a greater network of student adult leadership opportunities throughout the system. We have also had units of study in reading instruction group. This was facilitated by Teachers College Reading and Writing Project at Columbia University. So we had 25 teachers who participated in this opportunity, and this professional learning was really centered on the board's first goal of all students reading on grade level by the end of grade 3. So that was really exciting to see that number of teachers volunteer to participate in that this summer. And administrators. There also was designing more equitable and effective advisory systems. That was an opportunity for grades 6 through 12. We had 12 teachers participate in this. It was facilitated by the Great Schools Partnership. Some really strong connections to the work that we've already been doing and building, that cultivating that advisory system so that it really can be much more effective than it currently is. And that actually is centered on 2 of the board goals. So the second board goal around high school graduation by proficiency in their personalized learning plans, and also the third board goal about the SEL priority standards. And finally, Jody ended the summer with, she did work on universally designing universally designed proficiency-based units of instruction. So we had 13 FNESU teachers that participated in that, and they worked on building units of study to not only for themselves to use for the year, but units that they could share with their colleagues. So that was a pretty cool learning opportunity. And that was focused on board goal number 2 around graduation, proficiency-based graduation. Any questions on summer learning? So I'm going to jump into the real issue that's on everyone's mind, and that's the workforce issue, talking about our reality. I have some data up there, and there are tons more data points available for folks. I think some of the things that I'm not going to go through all of it, but some of the things that really stood out to me when I reviewed this data is that it's really glaring that we had a significantly larger number of teachers leave the profession this year as a nation. And in an NEA survey of more than 3 million members across the country, 55% of the members plan to leave education sooner than they had previously planned. I mean, you can see some of the demographic breakdowns in the data that I've shared with you. 90% of the members are reporting that they're feeling burned out. 67 are reporting that it's a very serious problem. So you can see that there's other data, I put some workforce data in there. 76% of the nation's teachers are women. And I think that there's definitely data about pandemic impact and how there have been more women who have had to leave the workforce because of some of the demands on the family with the pandemic. And the data now is when people enter the profession, about 44% of the people entering education leave within the first 5 years. So that's the kind of national reality with the data. So I'm going to have Morgan, while I'm talking, just kind of go through these next slides, and I'll give you some context. You have a table there that's going to show you, remaining open positions, and these are throughout the state of Vermont. I'm reporting out on FNESU. And in Vermont. So in a July survey of Vermont superintendents, we gathered this data, and to give you some context of how many superintendents responded, there are about 81,900 students in the state of Vermont. And this data is reflective of systems that account for almost 75,000 of those students. So it's a pretty large sample of what's happening in Vermont schools. So Morgan, if you could just kind of flash through and you can look at what those numbers are in each of those categories. So you're seeing the context both for licensed educators, and on this page 2, we start jumping into kind of a mix of some of the support staff positions and licensed educators. As you can see, there's a huge hit in the paraeducator section. We've lost 240 paraeducators in the state of Vermont, and we still have 17 openings, I think, for paraeducators specifically. Last one. So total in FNESU, we still have 49 open positions. This data is a few days old, and I've signed some contracts in the last 2 days, so it's not completely accurate because it's definitely living, breathing data. And there's 1,150 openings as of a couple of weeks ago in the state of Vermont. So I want to give you some context in terms of our staffing. We have approximately 250 educators in FNESU, licensed teachers. The provisional licenses for 2021, we had 38 provisional licenses. This year so far, we have 35. So that's 73 total, because everyone who was provisionally licensed last year, they still have this year to get their endorsements. It's 73 combined between those 2 years. Emergency licenses are 1 year licenses that we can get for people as they're trying to get the other, they're trying to become eligible for the provisional license. So last year we had 2 emergency licenses this year. So far, we have 13. So when you combine those 2 for 2022-23, we have 88 of our 240 educators that either hold a provisional or an emergency license. So that could mean the provisional license could be that they have experience as a teacher, but not in either the grade level or the field, the content that they're teaching, or it could mean that they're new to the profession.
In all cases, does it mean that they have a bachelor's?
Yes, the minimum is you have to have a bachelor's.
And so
degree.
there's no fast track program yet that would start to bring people up that maybe just have an associate's or have an extensive amount of
No.
in-school experience. Okay.
Not yet, there's no pathway, although we do encourage our support staff with associate's degrees, and all of our support staff continue to take those courses so that they can get to the bachelor's place, but we cannot get them licensed without a bachelor, except the tech center.
So with that many people with the provisional licenses, are we pulling in any more instructional coaches to help them kind of navigate whatever the subject area that might be new or the class level that might be new? That's my first question. And then secondly, what happens if they don't do everything within that year? You said they have 1 year or 2 years?
So there are 2 different kind of temporary licenses. The emergency license is 1 year. You can get that, it's given for 1 year, it's not renewable, and it's conditional. A provisional license is good for 2 years, and that is conditional, so what that means is they have to fulfill whatever the requirement is by the end of that provisional period to be licensed, and that is coursework, it's also praxis exams, things like that. So if they have not finished at the end of their 2 years, there's almost no leeway to go beyond that. So it's not an easy path to do it in 2 years. It's a lot of work.
30 on the emergency licensure. So is that to get them ready for the provisional? So they could then, if they do their 1 year as an emergency, and then they're ready to go to a provisional, they've got 2 more years to finish that off.
Yes, they're like, in most cases, they're not eligible for the provisional.
Because
They're probably missing something to be eligible for that provisional.
Do we have a breakdown as to what I want to ask? I guess it doesn't matter.
By school, is that where you're heading?
What?
Are you heading to data by school?
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that direction, but I don't think I really care. I mean, our numbers are what they are.
You will have more data, because I'm going to talk in a little bit just about, I'm working on a recruitment and retention strategic plan. Because this problem is big enough that we really need to put as significant effort as we can into this problem. So Mary, to your question about the coaches, so we went from a half-time mentor to having 3 full-time coaches. Plus we have, one of our schools has a full-time instructional coach, and another school has a part-time instructional coach. So we will not push as much of those SU level instructional coaches into buildings where they have full-time people or people that are dedicated only to coaching.
Yeah.
So there really is a little more than the 3. That wasn't an entirely popular decision, because we did pull people from other roles in the SU to make them instructional coaches, which I know put pressure on the leaders because they then had to fill those positions. But when you look at those numbers, there's really no way around the need for us. If we want to have a shot at retaining these people, we have to really bolster them in this first year and the first 2 years. So in addition to the instructional coaching, we have our new teacher orientation coming up in a couple of weeks, and all of our new teachers will be participating in a new teacher cohort with someone called Tina Bugren through the Champlain Valley Educator Development Clinic. So they'll have monthly virtual meetings with other new teachers, and she's really phenomenal about positively bringing the spirits of our new educators up. So I'm looking forward to that piece. So it's our effort at retention.
Lynn, in your work with retention and supporting teachers, I mean, the numbers of teachers who feel overwhelmed and that's scary to me. You know, just from the day to day, how they handle themselves in the classroom and how they handle themselves in their own mental health. What we can do to change that.
I can think of a couple things. I think that there's a lot on teachers' plates right now. And I think that one of the things that's a real challenge is our systems as a whole, we're really struggling with not having enough mental health support to support the needs of the kids that we have in our public schools. And we also are struggling with those kids that need higher levels of supports. We don't have alternative programs that are available anymore. There's one piece, like as a society, we need to invest in and support bolstering that mental health system. But I think the other thing as a community is we need to take care of our teachers, and we're seeing an increase in incidents in our students. And I'm going to be really frank. I see an incidents involving parents and community members also escalating. And I think it's very hard to be a teacher right now when your name can end up on social media and you can have 40 comments from people in your community that are really unkind. And that feeling of disrespect and lack of support, like I get it, people are very frustrated for a lot of different reasons, but I think that as a community, we need to show support of our teachers so that they feel us behind them, that, you know, we're here for you. They're not going to make every decision exactly right. We're all in this process as educators, and there's no playbook for a lot of the things that land on their laps or on our laps as administrators. So we sometimes will misstep, and then we need to learn from that and not misstep the same way again. So offering some grace to our educators right now, I think is a pretty good thing that we can all do. And, you know, it's kind of what we say to kids when they see something happening in the school, we tell them, if you see something, say something about it. It's the same with our community. And I think that sometimes people are afraid to intervene in those moments because it is hard. But I know our teachers would appreciate seeing and feeling that support from our communities.
I think another piece, I know Bakersfield has a PTCO, parent teacher community, and it's been involved in fundraising. I think we need to really branch out to community and get community in to see all the things that are happening that are, because I think all they're hearing is the negative.
Right.
I've seen a shift, I feel like in our PTO, I mean, they're still doing the fundraising, but I feel like they've been putting a lot more emphasis on the teacher appreciation stuff this past school year, which was amazing to see. So I think that's something that, you know, those organizations hopefully will continue to spearhead.
Yeah, I think that there's what you just named, Arlene, is one of the symptoms of coming out of the third school year in the pandemic response, because so many of those mitigation measures that we had to put in place were really about not allowing anybody in. So you're right. So what they see and hear are the things, those threads on social media is that kind of buzzes, but they haven't been able to come in and experience all the really good things. And there are really good things happening in our schools. There are struggles, but there are more good things than bad things happening in our schools. So that is one of our goals, to try to get people in more to be able to see those things. It's important.
Lynn, I think it's really important that you brought up the social media piece, because a lot of professions suffer from the effects of their members being talked about on social media. So I think that's something for our communities as a whole to be cognizant of, that it's really hurtful and it doesn't do anything good for the people we're trying to serve, meaning in this case, the children. And I did want to bring up $3 million that was released somewhere around June 11th for mental health supports in schools. And that money is supposed to be funneling down to districts. So I don't know if we've seen any right yet, but the AOE is in the process of hearing bids from different mental health services that could support students. So, you know, certainly state government is aware that mental health is a priority, and we've definitely put money towards it. So I think, you know, we just have to use that money wisely, because we're not going to continue to get $3 million every year. We have to change the culture, and by that, I'm talking about exactly what you're talking about, all the things that teachers face on social media. Well, people in other professions also face that as well, and it's extremely detrimental to the community.
Thank you, Lisa. So I'm not going to go through on the next slide. I can share this with the board afterwards. This is kind of a preview of 2 sections of our strategic plan. So there are 2 elements when we're thinking about this workforce dilemma. The one is about retention. What are the things we can do to support the staff that we currently have? And so what you see is a list at the top of all the things that we've already currently implemented. And then one of the strategies that we've been talking about, we brought it up to the SU board a few years ago, and we weren't really positioned well at that time to accomplish this. But one of the things that I'm going to be presenting as something under consideration is, do we have the capacity to build a childcare center for our workforce and do it in a way that is really affordable and would be attractive for people to come to FNESU and work here? And we have this wonderful lady here with us tonight, Melissa Wood, who's our early ed director, and she has the capacity to be able to manage a project like that. When we considered this a few years ago, we did not have a Melissa that could. So that's one thing that we've been thinking about and wondering about. Obviously, there are a million things that would have to happen to be able to put that into place, but we really have our eye on, you know, trying to make sure that our teachers feel that sense of support and belonging here within our system. And that, you know, the board really worked hard around pay this past year and trying to keep that in our mind's eye to be, you know, offering competitive wage to our employees. And we have some in-house opportunities for them too, in terms of bachelor's and master's degrees. So there are lots of things happening. On the next slide, it's really a summary. I feel like we've turned over every stone that we can think of this summer. So I really would love for you to look at the recruitment strategies slide. And if there's something that isn't there that you have heard of from somewhere else that you think of, please reach out to me and let me know, because we've really expanded how we're exploring avenues for recruiting staff. So even how we advertise, we've done some deliberate marketing in different states across the country. We've tried everything locally that we can think of. We even had the ability, the legislature passed this year a bill that allows teachers to come out of retirement. If we have exhausted all options, they could come out of retirement without it impacting the retirement that they're drawing down. So they could draw their full retirement and earn the full wage to come back for this 1 year. So we've written a letter to all of our teachers. We've posted on social media. And as you can see, there are a lot of other options, from starting our own licensure program partnership to just the ways in which we're compensating and paying people, looking at housing options for our educators and things like that. So please spend some time on that. And if there are ideas, send them my way. Any questions? I know that was a lot of information, but I feel like it's important because, again, in the, you know, this ties back to what we were talking about previously about social media. It's really easy to look at the dilemma, the place we're at right now, and try to place blame on why are we here. This must have something to do with X, Y, or Z. And I just caution people not to do that, because it's not helpful. And this is a national problem. This is not a just FNESU or just Bakersfield or Montgomery, Sheldon or Berkshire. It's nationally. So we're going to have to get really strategic, because we're all swimming up the same stream, looking for the people who are going to come into the profession. So encourage people out there to consider coming into education. There's some tough times right now, but it is a very, very rewarding career.
And is there also an issue for rural versus urban, that being a rural community, that it makes it more difficult to housing and, like you said, childcare?
I think that there are unique challenges to both. And I think that we've experienced this maybe longer than some of our more urban counterparts have. But we see, when I meet with superintendents around the state, our patterns are similar, that there really are no people looking to go into the support staff positions and very few going into education. I think we have the added challenge of not being able to attract anyone from the north because we're so close to Canada. So it just creates our circles a little bit smaller.
Well, and I also wonder about our higher level colleges, because I know for a fact that as if you want to go into phys ed, you have very few choices now in the state of Vermont.
A lot of the
Maybe I have two.
licensure areas like speech and language and library, the PE, yeah, not a lot of programs out there. Stay tuned, there'll be more on.
I just wanted to clarify, you said the state of Vermont has passed a law that a retired teacher can draw on their retirement funds, show up, be a teacher still. So essentially,
For 1 year though.
just for 1 year,
Yes.
and then you can't do it anymore.
Well, they're going to revisit, legislature is going to revisit that bill to see if there's a need to extend it, but for right now, the way it's written is that we'll have to reach out. I mean, we really have turned over every stone that we can think of, and we have at least one case where I think that's gonna work out for a retired educator coming back in. So we'll just have to reach out and work through the retirement office to make sure that we do everything we're supposed to, and that it'll end, and then we'll hopefully see the legislature approve it again.
Did they have
That's
to
amazing.
maintain their licensure?
We
Because I did
can,
have one that I know of that
Yeah.
was kind of, darn, I let my licensure go.
that's okay. Like, the message I would like to send out is, when I gave you that data on provisional and emergency licenses, even if they've let their educator license lapse, which most people in
Yeah.
retirement do, you have enough experience and credit where we can get you a provisional license.
If you've left the teaching profession, how long before your license would be no good anymore?
It depends. They're 5 year.
5 years.
Depends on where they were.
Because I also thought that was staggering, the statistic of 44% of teachers leaving within the first 5 years. Yes, they spent 4 years getting a degree and then. That's it. So yeah, the retention that you're talking about for the new teachers, I think.
So I'm gonna move on to Melissa.
Melissa, okay. All right. So in the early ed world, first I'll give you a review of what we did last year, and then talk about this coming school year. So last year was actually my first year with the SU, and the first thing that I had decided to do was look at the early multi-tiered systems of support. And in early childhood, that's the pyramid model. So one thing we did was engage in professional learning around the pyramid model, and we got through the first 2 modules. So that's relationship and supportive environments and targeted social emotional supports. And that really builds the foundation to supporting all of our students before we get to that top level of higher needs. And where the great thing about having this is that as we've moved into the limits around expulsion and suspension and for children under 8, believe it or not, children ages 3 and 4 and even younger are suspended and expelled from their early education programs. So having this system in place, having these tiers and understanding them really supports not having that happen, being able to keep them in the classrooms. And I will say that public school programs are less likely to suspend or expel a child. Really, there's no expulsion because we work so hard and have the supports in place to do that. The other thing we did to support pyramid model practices was engage in practice-based coaching. So we had coaches who provided the professional development, then come in to the classrooms. They did the teaching pyramid observation tool, which is shorthand or longhand for teapot. So they do that at the beginning, and then they coach through that. So based on the data, they create goals with the teacher, and it's a 2-week cycle where they're working on those goals. And then at the end of the year, they have a follow-up teapot. We had one school that was able to get the pre and post teapot based on when they started, and then the other school started later in the year for different reasons, and we got one teapot during the year, but we have a base to start from. We also adjusted preschool sessions to fit the needs of the children, which one example of that is the Sheldon expansion, where we were able to create another classroom and have full sessions for our 3-year-olds, which gave us many more Act 166 slots for those kiddos. We've really been able to open those slots up, and we saw some kiddos who were reaching other childcare centers, other preschool programs, come back to our Sheldon program. There was a picture on the slide. We had one event in April that pulled the community in. It was to celebrate the Week of the Young Child. And that I took some data on who was coming through the doors, and we did hit every town in actually the whole supervisory union and some towns that were close to our area. And some of the feedback was they were really appreciative, and everything was hands-on and appropriate for our youngest learners. Bringing us to the summer, I had a crew of our early educators, some that are starting this year and some who have been with us for a while, come together. And we have drafted some pre-K priority standards using the Vermont Early Learning Standards. And we crosswalk that with TS Gold, which is where we input all of our data to see where children are falling and their readiness for kindergarten. Bringing us up to this year, we will continue with our professional learning. So part of that will be getting that module 3 of the pyramid model, and that's the intensive interventions, and the coaching will continue. And again, whether they're new to our SU, new to teaching, wherever they fall, the teapot and the coaching is going to support them right where they're at. We're going to be implementing early learning curriculums. So get set for school and second step. Those will hit all of the foundational skills in all developmental domains. And one of the larger things, so these were all kind of hitting that classroom level, those classroom level pieces. One of the larger things that we're looking to do this year is to develop an early education leadership team to engage in some strategic planning. The purpose of this is really to ensure that our early education program engages in evidence-based practices, and we're using those to fidelity. And we are going to use, to facilitate the first year, it will be the same group who has also been doing our professional development and our coaching. So they have a really good idea of who we are as an SU, our goals, where we're at. And then the idea is that beyond year 1, this team is going to be self-sustaining. So no longer will Pyramid 802 be facilitating, but somebody from the team will step up and say, I want to lead this. So who could be part of the team? We're looking at around 8 members. We would be looking to have an early ed teacher, a special educator, SLP PT, a parent guardian of a current preschool student. I'll be on the team, a school principal, our equity director would be great to have on the team. So those are just some examples. Doesn't have to be limited to that. But again, we'd be looking for around 8 members, and we'd be meeting monthly to complete an inventory, which I'll talk about in just a second. And then also, once we get through that, examining other data to see where our strengths are, where our holes are, and where we can focus on and have some growth. So in regard to that inventory, it is the Vermont Early Multi-Tier Systems of Support Program inventory. So again, tied back to that pyramid model, early multi-tier systems of support. And that will look at us program-wide throughout the SU. And it's a multi-page inventory, many things. So we're looking at strong systems of support. So do we have a leadership team? How is it functioning? Let's see where we need to start. Partnerships and collaboration. So that includes family partnerships, early childhood community-based partners, transitions, which includes the K-3 transition. Well-designed professional development. So again, making sure that our staff needs are met and that the support is there for them. And then looking at high quality and responsive learning environments. So again, looking at that social emotional piece, the early learning, confidence and competence to include literacy and numeracy, and then a comprehensive and functional assessment system. So are we as a team effectively solving problems, using data to base our decisions, and promoting ongoing improvement. So that's our big task this year, is to design or to create that early education leadership team, work through this program inventory, and really propel our early ed program from there.
I just want to acknowledge, we've never had an early ed director before, so our coordination around early childhood, there really hasn't been a coordination. It had fallen on each individual principal's realm of responsibility. So to have Melissa here, really focusing on all of this with all of our early childhood teachers is incredible. So thankful that our SU board made the investment to get someone that really can attend to all of this. It's gonna make a huge difference for our youngest students.
Brilliant, thank you so much. I think it really is amazing, and to be at this moment, you know, compared to where we were 5 years ago, a decade ago, or even when you and I had tiny kids in the community, it's just, we're so far from that moment. It's amazing what we can offer now.
You'll see a connection. The next step is going to be Vern giving us a summer facilities update and a look for information connections to early ed, especially in Sheldon. There's exciting stuff that's been happening there. So I'll turn it over to you, Vern. Morgan's going to drive your slideshow.
Before we get started, I just want to recognize the custodians in these schools. You look at this floor, and you know we're having to make adjustments as well because it's not the most glamorous job, and they're not knocking the doors down to come and do this stuff. We're making adjustments in flooring. VCT is a really labor intensive. This floor right here is probably a day and a half of work to make this floor looks like this. So there's other options out there that we're looking at. Vinyl planking. You'll see some of the pictures at Sheldon that we're looking at to be able to free up these custodians a little bit more. They've got a lot of hurdles to go through. It's not like the old days when school was over and you walk out the door and the custodians have got free reign in school for the next 10 weeks. These guys work really hard, and I just want to recognize the work that they do with the small staff as they have. And I came into this, I'm a new guy on the block. I came in with some high expectations, and these guys have just impressed me a lot since I came in. So I just want to recognize what these guys are doing, a little amount of people that we have. So the first summer project at school is Sheldon's. Sheldon got a lot of work done, obviously, with the new pre-K classroom, and we restructured, really restructured four classrooms in all. These are some of the classrooms that we did. We took some space away from the library, which is the top right-hand corner, to add a larger classroom. This is the new band room on the bottom left that I think we actually grew a little space there. There was some concern whether we were going to have enough space, but we were able to pull that off. So I'm very, very happy with what we did. So this is basically just a demo of this project. Morgan, can you, some of the hurdles we had, the old schools are popular for having these tracks in the floors for these dividers. We ripped these out. We created new walls. More, can you go through some more? And then one of the things I want to say, Melissa has some great vision. So we made another pre-K class in the middle of two other classrooms, and she had a great idea of we had these windows made, the carpenter made these windows so we can get some of that natural light from the other classrooms going into this classroom. Some of the things we did, we added new LED lighting. The lighting in these classrooms is beautiful. And with the rebate money that was out there, it was just a no-brainer. To try to retrofit an older fixture was $75. With Efficiency Vermont, we were paying just around $35 for these new 2-foot lights, and we were able to put less fixtures in because the lighting was so great. And when you go into these classrooms, they're going to look beautiful. You can see, I don't know if you can zoom in at all more, but this is the new flooring that we're kind of going with a little bit. It's called a vinyl planking, and it goes down with a compression sensitive glue. So if anything ever gets damaged, it's just a matter of running a screw into it, popping it out, and putting a new one in. It's a no wax floor. There's a sealant that you can put on it, but I've been using this stuff for about 10 years now, and it's great. And the amount of maintenance that goes into it is a lot less than having to strip floors and do this. We actually made the library a little smaller, but I gotta tell you, I was really happy with how it came out. We were able to continue, keep all of the bookcases and reattach them to this back wall. And I think it was pretty tastefully done. You know, Morgan and Christy put a lot of thought and effort into how we wanted to lay this out, and I couldn't be happier with how it turned out. I'm very excited about it. Go ahead, next one. Some of the things that I didn't put on here that I just wanted to let you know that we did. We upgraded the camera system at Sheldon. We installed, or we're in the process, we're almost done, to put a new badge system, and they never had a badge system. So basically for the teachers to be able to come in and badge in, it's a huge safety thing. As Morgan said a couple of meetings ago, it's really easy to manage. Somebody walks out the door, you can instantly go and just take your badge off. So it's really a great thing. And the other thing that we did is upgrade our DVCs, digital controls. Basically, it's a huge efficiency thing. You can monitor your schools a lot better. I can sit at home in the winter. I keep my computer set up on my counter. I monitor these schools. I don't ever want to freeze one up or lose one in mechanical failure. It's just nice to have these things, and I can adjust these schools from my home if I need to. So it's one of those things, but the efficiency on it is huge. Basically, these valves in your house, your valves open up completely 100%. We open up in increments. If we just need 1 degree, they don't open up all the way, and it's just a huge efficiency savings. So that's some of the things that we did in Sheldon. Bakersfield, we did a parking lot this year that was much needed. So we went through and we dug down. We did it right. I talked to Morgan and Lynn, and to put the stock in these schools, let's just do it right. I'm not a big Band-Aid guy. Let's go ahead and do it right, and we'll get the longevity out of it. So anyways, we went through, we dug out some of these things, and lo and behold, we found a septic system that we didn't know existed right over here. So we spoke to the Bakersfield board, and lo and behold, this was supposed to be on their land, but it ended up in ours. With
The select board.
yeah,
Okay.
and with what they've got going on with this building, they're actually doing test pits in the front to do a septic system. However, the engineer suggested that we leave it there. We're going to leave it there. We're going to make marks off the building. They wanted us to put risers on it, and I said absolutely not. But we will mark it, so if it ever does have to come back into play, it can. But from the looks of the inside of it, it's probably never going to be used again. So these are just some of the pictures that we brought in. We brought in a good drainage stone that should take care of us, and then we're topping it off with finished stone. And the 2 schools in the Richford area are going to get done tomorrow, and I think this one will be followed up next week. So we're coordinating these jobs. Have been a challenge with it, equipment, everything this year. So it's been a real good challenge. We were able to, so we had the bathrooms off the gymnasium. I came in, talked to Rhoda. One of my biggest concerns is having a grandparent be able to come and watch your kid, and maybe that grandparent is. So we were able to take the counters out and make a legitimate ADA bathroom, and with epoxy floors. It's just a nice end product, and as far as our custodians, it's just going to give them a lot more ease at keeping these things clean. We did some things on the other side that will keep them a little cleaner. The girls' side, we didn't have to do too much, but the boys' side, we put some paneling on the walls and stuff, so we can make sure we keep those areas clean as well. So this was exciting to get this done, and I'm real happy with that. Some of the other things we did, again, here we did the DDC upgrade. Basically most of these schools have done like a 50% in the years past. So we just kind of took it forward and finished them up this year. And one of the other things, we're going to enlarge the pre-K playground. Melissa has been more than cheering with helping us out with a lot of things that are able to help out. So we're going to enlarge the pre-K playground and put a new fence around it. The fence is a little scary. It's not the safest looking thing. So we're going to go with a new vinyl coated fencing. Okay, Montgomery. We went through, we had a pretty serious moisture problem in the bathrooms there. We pulled up the existing linoleum, and this is what we found. So this was a no-brainer as well. We went through, we hired the same company. They came through and did the same thing with these epoxy floors. Our bathrooms don't smell like bus stations now. And they're going to be a lot easier to maintain in the long run. We weren't 100% happy with what we got in the end result, but we went back and the company came back and did a lot of stuff over, so we are happy now. But again, that's just the nature of the beast out there, with getting help and getting stuff done. But we stayed diligent. We got what we wanted, didn't we, Sandy? So this is just so all these DDC projects, I just wanted to show you. Basically, this is above the ceiling, and this is controlling all the ERUs and things in Montgomery. This is huge. This is an important aspect of these schools today, because it's just such a money savings thing to do.
Bert, I have a question.
Sure.
Does this also eliminate the one room is freezing and the next one is warm?
Yes, and I can literally sit on here and look at your classroom, and you listen, everybody has a different comfort zone, you know. So we are able to do that. And realistically, the teachers do have a little bit of a variance. I think there's a 3-degree variance in this program. So that is kind of nice to have. Some of the other things that we did at Montgomery that, again, I didn't take pictures of. Oh, I'm sorry, let me finish up. So this is an entryway to the pre-K entrance, and Melissa thought that it would be a good idea, and I agree with her. If you look at this, you can see the natural trail that everybody takes. So it was a no-brainer to put in a sidewalk here. This is coming down. This will be done. I think by early next week we'll have this completed as well. It'll be an ADA ramp, so it's just another entrance to be able to, if we have the need for it. So again, Melissa was great at helping us out with getting this done. Some of the other things we did there, we had Sylvie Dusso come in, and she painted all the hallways as well as the gym, and it just looks beautiful. I couldn't be happier with what the end result was there. One of the other things we did there, one of the first jobs that Morgan put on my plate here, as you walk into Montgomery School, there's a flat roof, and that's where the principal, the nurse, the main office, and there's a couple of breakout classrooms. They had absolutely no air, fresh air coming in, so we were able to put an ERU in there and bring in some fresh air, and it's pretty noticeable now. So we were able to get that done, and realistically, you can't keep the principal happy, but as well as the nurse's office needs to have fresh air and stale air going out. So those are the two people you want to keep happy. And then Berkshire is a beautiful school. We didn't do a ton up there. One of the things we're doing, they have a generator there with no transfer switch. So generator is great if it happens when you're there. You can go and physically do it, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense if you don't have a transfer switch. So we're putting a new transfer switch in there, so it automatically changes over when we lose power. So that was a no-brainer when we got there. A couple of the other things we're doing, we're doing the this was actually an existing classroom. This gives you a little idea of how many times you take walls down and put them up in schools. This was an existing wall that they've been taken down, and we needed to make another space. So Morgan, if you go through, we put this wall up, and this will be done. This will be ready for paint on Tuesday, and we'll be able to have another. I think this was for an office. I think.
Yes, 2 office spaces.
Yes, 2 office spaces. So anyways, this will be done by Tuesday. We'll be good to go there, and we're able to save. We could have contracted it out, but we got a pretty darn good staff up there as well as most of the schools, and they're going to save us the time on painting it, and so we're trying to save where we can. And this is just the pre-K playground. We've got all these fencing fences going up. The company that did it has a little family issue that he's a little behind, but he guaranteed me last week that all these fences will be up by the time the school opens. So overall, you know, hats off to Lynn and Morgan for recognizing that there's a need for this stuff. And it's not gonna get better if you ignore it. So I love coordinating and doing this work, and I couldn't be happy with what we got done this year. It's been a busy summer, so very happy.
So I'm gonna jump in on this one too, because this is another example of a position that we've never had before. So principals have had to do these one project at a time, only in years, especially in these 4 tuitioning towns where they were not significantly impacted by tuition. So one of the benefits from merger is your budget is more stable from year to year, because one may have more tuition students, but another town might have less. Because you have a shared budget, there's embedded stability there. And what you've been able to do by investing money into, you know, the facilities fund for projects that come up is making, as you can see, a huge difference in each of these schools. The other thing I just want to say that Vern has been able to manage a tremendous amount of projects this summer. He's like the Energizer Bunny. And since he started working for us, he's got a really good eye for prioritizing what needs to happen first. And he's been a go-getter in terms of, I think I can get funding for that, as has Melissa. So these are new positions to the SU. They're getting stuff done, they're improving programming, and they're generating revenue to come in to support some of the work that we're trying to accomplish. So I think that these are 2 really positive examples of the collaboration and our focus on building systems that support all of our schools. So thank you.
I think it also goes to that community piece that you see your schools being taken care of, you see your younger kids being taken care of. That's gonna build community support.
Tip you all for later meetings. You know, Lynn mentioned the grants that Melissa's been able to chase down, and Vern has been able to chase down, and obviously where we can get someone else's pay for these projects, we do. 3 of your 4 schools, Bakersfield, Berkshire, Montgomery, came to the merger with existing capital reserve funds, and you've given us permission in the past to cover a lot of these projects with those funds, and so we continue to do that. We've got a district-wide capital reserve fund, which started last year. We will have the opportunity to put a lot of the Sheldon projects under that if we need to. That's a situation where a lot of those bills initially will probably put to the general fund, see how those tuition student numbers come in, and then if we need to, we can move them to capital reserve fund. But that district-wide one, we're going to try to pull if possible.
Any questions?
Thanks, Vern. It's
Yes.
excellent.
I really don't have anything else under mine. I had school-wide plans, but as I said, I was wrong when I wrote that for you. I thought they needed approval, and it's really informational.
Right.
Those are required elements of, because we have Title I school-wide programs, we have to write these plans in order to continue to get that federal funding.
Okay. That's great. So then that's it for you, then, eh?
Yes.
All right, so we're moving on to our principal reports. Rhoda, do you have anything that you might like to add to yours or highlight?
I don't think so, other than there were 2 things you forgot on your list. Right? There's a new shed coming
Oh, yeah.
for storage. It's been ordered and it'll be coming, and that will allow us to get anything that's left in Brigham out of there. Count happy too.
Snowshoes.
Yeah, those things. We did do a big purge over April break of last school year, so there's not as much as there might have been, but the things that we
We're not
use.
skis,
No,
snowshoes.
we're not skis or snowshoes.
Please,
They're
please,
still there. They're still there. But we will have that storage shed coming, and then we are looking at a few more other cameras for here as well. Those will be on the 2 things.
The shed is much needed in the school. There's just absolutely no place for storage, and we're putting them in 2 schools just because we're just running out of space. And
Oh, the ice cream social, I think we've decided on a date of August 25th.
Thanks, Rhoda. And then Lenny is not here. So Sandy, anything that you would like to highlight or add to? I know Lynn mentioned the kind of the reconfiguration.
Would like me to speak to that? Yes, so we were kind of last minute, end of the school year with the one person that broke her contract and, put out an ad, no responses, which is the first time ever I think that's happened. So it was one of those kind of, let's see, who do I have available? Who do I know? Who's been in our building? Who do we have that has a bachelor's degree? So that's where I kind of started, it's been that way. Honestly, I've been kind of thinking with that mindset for a while and keeping in the back of my mind who in town has a bachelor's degree and it's kind of different, but I did reach out to someone who has been subbing in our school, has been working in our LEAPS program. And to be honest, finding out that she wanted to be a teacher years ago and had everything up to her student teaching done, and then had kids and was a stay-at-home mom. And so I didn't know all that about her. The only thing that kind of changed my thinking a little bit was because it happened to be a second grade class. And that second grade class had a teacher in first grade who was on an emergency license. And so it seemed 2 years in a row that might not be the best idea. Just not wanting to do a disservice to any students. And not that I'm saying that the person we hired would do a disservice, but feeling like the right thing to do would be think out of the box a little bit. So I'm doing a team teaching situation. We have a new first grade teacher, but she's not a new teacher. So we had hired her in April. I think their personalities match really nicely. So we're really getting excited about it, to be honest. So they're going to teach together for the kind of core academics piece. And they're going to have their autonomy with their own classrooms for morning meeting, their own specials. They'll go and they're going to have specials at the same time, first thing in the morning, so that the team teaching can have their common planning time together as well. So I feel like we're setting everybody up for success, and she's already signed up for the UVEI program. She's very excited about embarking on this career that she's been waiting for a long, long time. So it's kind of a happy ending, if you ask me anyway. So, and Vern, you forgot about my cameras.
Don't, I forgot about your cameras. I forgot cameras, I'm sorry.
We upgraded our camera system. It wasn't working. The recording wasn't working anymore. So we could look on the monitor and see things that were happening, but you couldn't review it. And so we got the new DVR system, and then we had 8 cameras. They improved the cameras and then added one more into the gym, which we really needed. So that was a nice improvement. It's really clear. It's in the corner. You can see everything. So that was a good security thing for us. That's it for me.
Great, thanks so much, Sandy.
Mary, I forgot to introduce Jessica at the start of the
Oh
meeting.
my
I'm so
goodness, right, of course,
sorry.
as did I. I forgive the oversight, yeah.
So maybe before we ask, could we have her introduce
Yes,
herself?
please.
Hi, Jessica. Jess.
Hi, thank you for welcoming me. I'm Jessica Ox, the new principal in Sheldon. I apologize, I'm not there in person for the first board meeting. I'm at the VPA Academy in Killington, getting some wonderful experiences here and meeting other principals. My board report is fairly complete. I do want to add that we too are adding a pre-K storage shed for the playground. With the 3rd grade room being constructed, the pre-K classrooms lost storage for some of their outdoor equipment, and we're able to pay for that shed under a grant. So, and I thought the shed is actually much bigger than I thought. So with our space, it might turn into a classroom one day. Who knows? But pre-K will never hurt for storage. Let's put it that way. We are also adding cameras to our middle school hallway for extra security. And through talking with Chris Comstock, who sort of heads our security for the building, I learned Sheldon did not have a Knox box on the outside, which is a little box to store keys in so that first responders can get in an emergency. So I placed that on order, and it should be in the next 2 weeks. I thought that was a formality for all schools to have. I was surprised we didn't have one, so that was a huge priority to get. So we don't have damage should first responders need to get in for a fire call and they can't. Now they can just access the building when they need to. A note about hiring, I know I went backwards a little bit. The 2 paraeducators who are getting emergency licenses, they connect so well with students, and I think they're going to be assets to the school system. And I think it's wonderful that we can promote this sort of internal growth for our staff. And I think it's going to be great for kids and for them personally. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Jess.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jess. Welcome. We're glad to have you.
Thank you.
All right, so that brings us to board business. Any future agenda items that someone wants to add now, speak to now? Our next meeting, September 7th. Wow, September. We do not have a SU board report for this month just because of the holiday break. And anything else, folks?
We have to return for executive.
Oh, we
session
do.
with teacher.
Yes. Okay, so I will make the motion at 8:28 to enter executive session by roll. Lisa,
Aye.
Emily,
Aye.
Pat, aye, Erin,
Aye.
Arlene,
Aye.
John, and Mary is an aye. We're exiting executive session at 8:50. I'm going to make a motion to grant a 1-year unpaid leave of absence to Kelly Hyde, our Berkshire interventionist. By roll, Lisa,
Aye.
Emily,
Aye.
Pat, aye, Erin,
Aye.
Arlene,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
and Mary is an aye. All right, and anything else, folks? I'll make a motion to adjourn. 8:51. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Nice evening. Drive safely.